A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Spectrum Xtra, coming to you live on Radio 1 FM 90. We're broadcasting from the Central Building here in the heart of our city, Kampala, but also live on our website, which is www.radio1fm90.com. On that website, you click on the icon with the word Listen Live. Well, this radio station is also live on the different radio listening apps, which can be obtained from the Google Store of your smartphone. You download any of those. They include TuneIn, AfroMobile, your TV channel, Radio Garden, and Stream Africa. Look for Radio 1 FM 90, and as long as you have an internet connection, you'll be able to listen to us. We are also coming to you live in your sitting room via your TV set. If you have a DSTV connection, you look for audio channel 897. My name is Kenneth Lukwagandason, your host, and today we'll be reviewing the major events of the week. Our major talking point is the Kiteezi situation and the lessons that we can take from there as a country that is rapidly urbanizing. Now, we have so far lost 34 people, while 29 are still missing, according to the police report, following that Kiteezi incident that some people have described as fruits of utter negligence of duty on the part of KCCA, but also we are hearing from KCCA, especially the political leaders, who are saying the central government ignored their warning about an impending danger. Actually, they say that landfill should have been closed 10 years ago. Now, many questions have been asked, but we know everyone is waiting for the report from the Inspectorate of Government, which was tasked by President Yoweri Museveni to conduct a swift investigation. They want to find out whether there's anyone culpable. Was it a neglect of duty or it was an accident? So we'll be waiting for that report. But we know Cabinet will be sitting on Monday to discuss this incident. There's also main focus on handling the compensation of those affected and relocating those who are around the area. Now, earlier today, the KCC executive, led by the Lord Mayor Arias Lukwago, issued a situation analysis and a litany of demands and proposals to Cabinet, which they say must be considered. Top on the agenda, one, they want money in place to quickly respond to warnings that have been issued about Kiteezi. Apparently, the remaining mountains of garbage have already developed cracks, and if we are not very careful, they might again cause another challenge very soon. So they want that attended to. They are also looking for money to prepare the temporary places where the rubbish is going to be dumped. If you've seen some newspapers today, there are pictures on the front page showing us the biggest challenge of garbage that is around the city here in Kampala, where bags of rubbish are piling up without anyone attending to them. How do we deal with that situation? Arias Lukwago thinks there are temporary places that can be catered for if money is released by the Cabinet to be able to accommodate the rubbish. Now, some people say this is an eye-opener, this disaster, to the many challenges that many cities that we have in this country are facing as we continue to also urbanize rapidly. They say the country needs to plan well. So, do these cities that we have actually have the capacity to handle such challenges? In terms of capacity, we are looking even at the financial muscle because it's one of the challenges that we are also seeing in Kampala. And of course, this has also rekindled debate about decentralization and whether these local governments actually make sense. So today, we'll be looking at these issues, but we do value your feedback, so we expect you to send us messages via the WhatsApp line 0703-090-090. The panel. Miss Amanda Ngabirano, the chairperson of the National Physical Planning Board. She is an urban planner and lecturer in the same discipline. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us on Spectrum Xtra.
Thank you, Kenneth. Good evening, listener.
Thank you very much. Honorable John Ereso, economist and former Kaweremaido County MP. He served during the 6th and 7th Parliament. Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
During that time, you were a member of the Committee on National Economy.
Yes, I was a member. Good evening, listeners and fellow panelists. I was a member of the Budget Committee, Standing Committee, the first Budget Committee of Parliament after the enactment of the law. Then I was also a member of the Presidential and Foreign Affairs Committee, where I became a vice chair. Because it was a sessional committee, I was a vice chair for 1 year.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us. And the third panelist, Mr. Yusuf Serunkuma, political economist, researcher, columnist with the Observer. commentator on governance issues. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening,
Joseph.
and thank you so much for having me.
All right. I'll begin with you, Honorable Ereso. This Kiteezi incident, 34 people lost, 29 are still missing. We know the operation to recover those who are still, assumed to be under the rubble, under the rubbish, that has piled up, that covered houses and several other businesses that were around that area is still going on. But the police tells us 34 people lost, 29 still missing. How did you receive the news that, rubbish has actually killed a number of Ugandans?
First of all, it was a shock. I was shocked that such event could happen. And secondly, personally, I felt it was inevitable because at one time I drove around and I passed that particular place. And I thought it was not a rubbish heap, but something else. Until one of my friends with whom I was in the vehicle said, no, that is garbage. And I wondered how garbage could pile to that magnitude. But then we talked about it, and I said, this can be a terrible explosion of methane. But somehow it went off our heads, we laughed it off. But I knew it would be a dangerous thing to happen in the near future. That was one day, not too long ago, maybe about 3 weeks ago, I could say this. May I take this opportunity also to put my condolences to the families and people who have lost their dear ones in this particular unfortunate incident, which, in my opinion, really makes us look very, very ugly in a modern world.
All right. Those are your initial thoughts. Let's hear from you, Mr. Serunkuma.
The veteran journalist Charles Onyangobo wrote a piece in the Monitor early in the week, right after the incident had happened. And he tried to alert us to the dangers that we face as a country as regards planning and how people in authority take these things seriously. And he pointed to one or two things. He pointed to the ways in which we are ruining Lake Victoria, the amount of industrial waste that's going to Lake Victoria. It's an accident waiting to happen. And he said Lake Victoria shared between 3 countries. Kampala is the biggest polluter of this lake. The amount of industrial waste, crude, used motor vehicle oil at 20 million, liters or something like that. And that was one of those things that he alerted us about. But this is in the wake of the rubbish that has killed many people in Kiteezi. A couple of months ago, there were exhibitions in the city about the potholes of the city and how people at the planning authority, KCC especially, take these things seriously, right? We have the Nachivo channel, which was widened and perhaps modernized. And the amount of waste that is going into that place, the Nachivo channel, is humongous. And then added to quickly what happened in Kiteezi. Be done by the city are not funded. The funds are not available, right? So he re-emphasized many times that early this year there were intentions to decommission the place, and all they wanted was 26 billion Uganda shillings. They couldn't have it. They couldn't get it. 26 billion shillings when they were staring at a disaster. They couldn't afford 26 billion shillings, right? I'm hoping the Lord Mayor shows up in the course of this show, and he can explain a bit more, because, we know government gives them about 804 billion shillings. They also collect money, and they've been given the right to collect and appropriate at the same time. So, and that's like at a tune of 99 billion. So we will be interested in knowing, they wanted 26 billion, but neither of them saw this as a big crisis. All right, but at the same time, we will absorb Lord Mayor Lukwago to a degree, and I think ask the planners, the 4.1 billion which is sent to this place every single year. The dead equipment which is seated there doesn't compact the rubbish. But this is a question of what became KCCA. You know, if you're looking at all these crises that we put out in the city, we're talking about NEMA letting our wetlands and other parts of the ecosystem being damaged by developers. You know, in Lake Victoria, there was a rich man who was dumping soil in there so that he can, you know, sort of get part of the, have it usable for the expansion of his hotel. So if you had NEMA, Lake Victoria, Natural Channel, and then rubbish, you're not looking at Elias Lukwago entirely. You're looking at the technical people, because as Museveni bragged, he said he made the Lukwagos, they can still keep the padlocks in their hands, but they actually have no power. All they do is ceremonial, right? So this is, we are staring at a crisis, and as Charles Onyango will put it, Kiteezi is a curtain raiser. Something more is about to happen, and I hope, there are moments in the life of this country that as public commenters, as observers, you run out of ideas. You're looking for who to accuse, who to put blame on, but at the same time you're wondering, so what's going to happen if the leadership at the top doesn't think it's necessary to do these things? You know, it is those moments where you say the individual actors have agency, and glad, Kenneth, you have the National Physical Planning Board chair here. There's a point where you realize you need to question these individual actors, and then you realize maybe they're also handcuffed. You know, and I felt if Lukwago appeared here, and as he's been appearing before, he's been speaking to his helplessness. He's being trapped in a big position, but with very little he can do. You know, maybe I'll stop there for now.
Right, let's hear from Amanda. Your initial thoughts, even before we get deeper into this matter.
Just like Honorable Resu and Yusuf, my brother, have mentioned, it was really a very sad incident to wake up to. And it's quite embarrassing. It's humiliating, the human dignity, like, to die from rubbish. Those families, you know, losing your loved one under garbage. It was really, really bad. But like Honorable mentioned, it was just a matter of time, really. Because, one, landfills now in physical planning are regarded as outdated, backward methods of solid waste management. There are so many other new technologies that have come up. This particular one has been overwhelmed. Like you mentioned, you passed there several times. I think I passed there also, and I saw the heap, but I did not know that this heap was going to reach that level, given that it was being facilitated and funded. That's one. Two, I felt so bad that the citizens were living so close by, and I wondered how they had acquired permission to construct in that place, and why that buffer was not respected. So, like Yusuf mentioned, I wondered who did not do what. The citizens probably were stubborn. The leaders in authority probably were negligent. The funding may have been a problem, but still something could have been done by those who are mandated to do it. For instance, asking the citizens to leave. And the other thing that came to my mind is the fact that politics has continued to work against some projects, because we are trying to defend the citizen. Do not disturb them. They have a right to housing, to settlement, but in a wrong place. Do not disturb the voters. Leave them. Those who are in wetlands, do not disturb them. Then I thought about the other disasters that are yet to happen, even not just for people living close to Kiteezi. All of us in our neighborhoods, if we check, there is something wrong related to physical planning. And he says that people are in authority, but they don't seem to have the ability to do these things. There's one thing that had to be done, and that thing had to be heard And that's what we need to do for all the other sectors. We need to be bold, face the reality, not only about Kiteezi. But my condolences also, like my colleagues have said, to the families that have lost their loved ones. But we are all at a risk in various sectors, especially regarding to physical planning. Look at traffic congestion, look at connectivity, look at how people access their homes. Some people don't know how to get to their homes. They are trapped. Look at the occupancy rate in the informal settlements. Look at the utility connection. Who connects your power? How is the utility line, the power line? Is it coordinated? Is it legal? If you go down here, your neighbors downtown, how is that power connection? So I think we are sitting on something that we need to face in the various sectors, but we can prioritize. In summary, Kiteezi has exposed us, and we need to wake up.
All right. Let's begin digging deeper. Honorable Restaurant, I'll begin with you. Was this situation avoidable?
The Kiteezi situation, if it was to be avoided, should have been avoided long ago. By the time the pile-up started, that was the beginning of the problem. And like my sister here said it is a little bit old-fashioned to have surface disposal of garbage. Okay, even if we had a surface disposal of garbage, there should have been a mechanism to create a decongestion. And we don't need to do I mean, if you have a surface disposal of a garbage, there should be a means by which to convert that garbage so that it doesn't pile up, so that it's disposed of. That's one. Two, we are talking about garbage in an urban setting and in the city for that matter. Let's go back historically and look at who are the occupancy of the city of Kampala.
In the capital, actually, no?
In the capital city of Kampala. Mainly, these are people from rural areas who have found their way into the city, especially after the exodus of the Asian community that occupied part of major parts of Kampala, the central business district and other immediate surroundings. These people who came did not change. They came with the village. Let us face it. They came to Kampala with the village, and they have lived in Kampala with the village. So that we carried matoke pilings to Kampala, we carried potato peelings to Kampala, we carried everything that would remain in the village to Kampala. And that invariably increased the cost and challenges in management of garbage. Without...
Honorable, some information. But,
yes, please.
But Kampala is a village.
Who made it a village?
Who has made it a village?
That's what he's saying.
No, it's traditional village. You see, we still have cemeteries, matoke plantations.
No, I'm going systematically. But still, the point is, I'm trying to say is that there must have been, if Kampala was to be the city that it should be, in my opinion, the ordinances that would be followed should have been enacted to ensure that people who come to the city, live as people who have come to a city. I can give you a case. At one time, I had a truck which did transporting of matoke and whatever from wherever they come from. But the luggage was much heavier because I was carrying banana leaves. And those things end up in Kampala. This evening, before I came to the studios, I said, let me take a walk around the surroundings of Radio 1, just here. Kampala Boulevard, in the front part of Kampala Boulevard, is significantly very different from the back of that building. The back of here. All that garbage is definitely going to end up in Kiteezi or wherever it will be taken. That is a village which has come to Kampala. You go to Nakasero Market. I went there today, this evening. It is the most abominable sight of anything. We are building markets all over the place. All towns and urban centers are building new modern markets. Kampala has never built a Nakasero market, which is one of the central markets in the country, in the city. And the garbage in Nakasero gives a foul smell. And you find very nice red tomatoes being sold on top of garbage heaps. I wanted to take a photograph, but I feared people would probably descend on me given the euphoria of the situation. So what I'm trying to put across is, without calling it a blame, the authorities of Kampala City, the political leadership of Kampala, has a responsibility to enact laws, to regulate who and how people should settle in Kampala and do their activities.
All right, Honorable, hold it there. We need to go for a break now. When we return, I'll bring in Mr. Yusuf Serunkuma. He has been looking at you sharply as you submitted, and he seems not to agree with you when you talked about the village coming to Kampala. Well, we'll hear from him when we return from this break. Thank you very much for staying with Radio 1 FM 90. Let's go for a break now. When we return, the discussion will continue. Well, thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Extra, live on Radio 1 FM 90 review of the major events of the week. Our major talking point is the Kiteezi debacle and challenges that we face as a country. 34 people lost their lives, 29 are still missing. Police and the Red Cross are still continuing with an operation to see if more bodies can be retrieved from the band of mud that, sort of rolled down from the highest point of the rubbish landfill onto businesses and households where people were staying. My guest this evening, the Honorable John Eresu, economist and former Karimaido County MP, served during the 6th and 7th Parliament. Ms. Amanda Ngabirande, chairperson of the National Physical Planning Board, urban planner and lecturer in the same discipline, and Mr. Yusuf Serunkuma, political economist, researcher, columnist with the Observer, commentator on governance issues. Let me come to you, Yusuf. You wanted to respond to the Honorable Eresu, but also I want to ask you the same question. Do you think this situation of Kiteezi was avoidable, like the political leaders in Kampala are saying? They said they warned about 10 years ago and again early this year that that place needed to be decommissioned. Do you think could have avoided this situation? But you're also one of those people who has widely traveled in some cities abroad. You could also share with us what exactly are they doing? How do they manage their rubbish? I remember very well Ms. Ngabirano told us that this system of actually disposing garbage on the surface is outdated.
Okay, you just asked me so many questions in one single go. They needed to be
I've given you a mouthful.
Taking notes. And there's a comment which I'm itching to give in response to what the Honorable MP said. But I wanted to tell the story of Sise Namkasa. I'm not sure many of you remember this woman. Kampala was flooded and she was walking. She fell in a manhole and the water carried her to her death.
Nobody saw her again.
It took many, many days and weeks to find her body because she was carried away by a manhole, an open manhole. If you move through this city...
Just hold it there.
Yeah.
On the Winton Road, this happened to me. I was walking after Autotune Garage. I'd taken my car to service there, Nissan. So as I was walking, I was attracted by a billboard and I was reading something. Little did I know I was entering a manhole. What saved me was that there was some rubbish inside that in the manhole. Otherwise, I would have got torn in two pieces because one leg would have gone down, another one would have remained on the surface. Probably I would have got torn into equal halves.
Yeah, you're lucky rubbish saved you. This
but
time it's killing
that
people.
was not the end of the story.
Yeah.
I was hurt. I thought of suing KCCA. I said, it's just being stupid. Let me just cure myself and keep quiet. But it hurt me.
Yeah.
Continue your story.
Exactly. So the story of Sise Namkasa should show us, and his story, that, we know these things. we know we have plenty of time bombs in this country. We have plenty of potential disasters waiting to happen. We have these wide open gullies everywhere in the city. Our planners build these open gullies, and on a rainy day, somebody's going to really drown in these places. But we don't care. We walk past them like we don't see them. The people in the planning department see them every single day, and they walk past them. So it is this attitude that led to the death of Sisedam Kasa, the attitude that almost had our honorable here lose his life, because he said it would have been split into I don't know how. It's the attitude that we see the things every single day and we don't care. We tend to postpone disaster. We tend to think that disaster will happen in a future that is not with us right now. Right? And I wanted to say, a favorite theorist of mine, Slavoj Žižek, I think he said, when the thing happens the first time, it's a tragedy. When it happens the second time, it's a farce. You can even laugh at it. But then the farce is more scary than the tragedy. Because the farce, it means it has become normalized. The death of lives in this country has become normalized. This is why we're making jokes out of the garbage death. Not because it's the first time it's happening. We've had similar accidents happen before. There were folks who returned from a wedding in eastern Uganda and died in a small bridge, which simply collapsed. You know what normally happens when people are returning to southwestern Uganda, or rather western Uganda, Masaka, normally during the festive season? The road collapses. And potentially if you're driving there in the night, maybe people will actually fall in. But it's not that we didn't know it was happening. This is tragedies that have become farce, that we now laugh and smile through our tragedies because we have normalized death. It has become so normal that when these accidents happen, we tend to move on. And I think part of the problem is the attitude that the Honorable here showed, that you would have to do KCCA, because somehow leaderships, the people in power, don't just do things that they're supposed to be done. They have to be compelled to do it. My friend Isaac Semakade tried to sue KCCA on the Sisenam Kasa case. I don't know, because he tried to sue them, he actually did sue them. He kept the case in the public domain that we constantly debated it because there was a case ongoing in court. So if we have plenty of cases, like I really think that, our so-called public interest lawyers should sue KCCA on behalf of the victims of the Kiteezi tragedy. Right? But I don't know what they're doing. You see, Uganda Law Society was gallivanting to the protesters, but there's death. Death by, as you know, money not being spent, as you know, Monitor did a wonderful headline, death by omission. All these are potential cases that our public interest lawyers, Uganda Law Society, should actually sue KCCA. They should sue Mrs. Ngabiru's department too. She should be in the dock, because, in fact, Anderson, I want you to ask her how much she knew of this, because she's the board chair, National Planning Authority, how much she knew of this potential tragedy coming to happen very soon.
Let's hear from her. And I want to ask you a question. You talked about this being an outdated system of handling things. But we also hear from KCCA that this landfill has been under what they call rehabilitation. And they have been spending 4.1 billion shillings. And one of the things we see from the breakdown of their budget, they have been hiring excavators and several other machines to actually deal with the situation. Some of them you actually said they are there but not doing a lot of work. In your experience as a planner, having seen this kind of situation where we have been, do you think this situation would have been avoidable? And looking forward, what can we actually do to get out of this kind of situation?
I think this situation could have been avoided, honestly, because everybody has been seeing it, and the authorities have also been seeing it. We were with the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness on UBC the other night, and they actually said they sent a team to go there. So the team went up there on the hip. On their way back, they found where they had passed had widened. It had opened up because of the temperatures that rise with the decomposition. And they recommended that it should be immediately. Yes.
Recommending to who?
They recommended to the authorities. In fiscal planning, by the way, with rationalization, we are now sending this mandate to NPA.
NPA?
Yes.
That's where you're going?
Actually don't exist. This board doesn't exist.
So you're going to be at NPA?
The functions of the board
are going to
NPA.
Okay.
So with the new law, the amendment, the board has been dissolved. That doesn't mean that we should not comment or guide.
All right.
So we, the fiscal planning role at the national level, we supervise local governments. KCCA is a city authority. The rest are local governments under the Local Government Act. When the authority is given an instruction to deal with something, they have to take action. If there is that evidence that they were instructed and action was not taken, that's a problem. So the board was supervising fiscal planning committees, and we guided and said, let us stop with landfills. Nationwide, we have approved about 65 fiscal development plans, including 3 cities, Arua, Jinja, and Gulu. The other 7 cities don't have fiscal development plans. The municipalities and districts and town councils, we have told them this landfill story has to stop. Use the modern methods. You recycle, you reuse, you reduce, you avoid, and they are trying to catch up. But Kampala is a special case. Everything.
Kampala
right
is special.
Now,
it's the capital city.
It is, but with all due respect, I don't think that the villagers. I don't know who is not a villager in this studio. I came from the village as well.
Me too.
But I don't think I came with the rubbish.
And you had Honorable Eres telling you he's from Kaberamaido.
Yes. So we all came from the villages. Now, in fiscal planning, if you allow one geographical entity, geographical area, to have numerous advantages over the others in the country, you're going to attract people in that geographical area because of opportunities. Service delivery. People want light, people want water, running water, people want jobs. And you want to bury them in Kabaramaido, where there are no opportunities for employment. So they tend to get attracted to that city. Kampala was suffocated for so many years. It's not only garbage. Look at everything. You've talked about the abattoir during the break. Everything is suffocated. Actually, it's not really the face that it should have as a capital, let alone being a city, because it was overwhelmed. Now, why this matter was not handled is because we have now taken on the attitude of business as usual. And we assume that when it happens, you will not be the one who is affected. 2, we need to admit that the priorities, we are not getting them right, our priorities. 3, the funding gap is real. For example, this board, the first financial year, we were supposed to receive 6 billion. We received about 4. Second financial year, that is 2021, 2022. It was reduced further to 2.5. We are supposed to cover the whole country. All villages, 2.5. Third, it was about 800 million. That is 200 million per quarter for national fiscal planning. So we issued, for example, guidelines that please do not construct petrol stations within a certain range. We were overwhelmed. We cannot enforce. Haven't you seen them? Everywhere, 100 meters apart, opposite each other. And this is stubborn because they know we shall do nothing to them. And we have failed. We tried to pull down some petrol stations in Chira, Mukono, Masaka, but we haven't gotten the big ones that we need to pull down.
Why did you go that far? There are so many around Kampala here.
Because we
that are so close to
Kampala,
each other.
we closed, we issued an instruction to KCCA, do not approve any other petrol station. That is 1. 2, we also issued a communication to developers about the new guidelines. We could not enforce. We invited NEMA, we invited National Building Review Board, we invited UBOS, UNBS, Ministry of Energy. In fact, there was someone in the Ministry of Energy who hated the fuel stations guidelines so much that when we were launching the guidelines, he refused to sign.
Who was that? Give us the name.
What is the name? I have the minutes. You can retrieve them. You can ask for them when you sue. So you can imagine that.
Access to Information Act.
Yes. So we need to ensure that we become serious. It's beyond Kiteezi. It's the attitude of the people in authority. It's the attitude of the citizens. It's a culture which is being made a habit. But being a villager in Kampala is not a problem. It's like someone was blaming us for our dietary behavior, like matoke, peelings, fiber. That's nice organic waste, which we need to reuse, recycle. I mean, rice. You cannot say because we don't eat rice, we are failing to manage our garbage. Because the production of rice is bringing out several other negative impacts, socially, economically, environmentally, which matoke doesn't bring. So it's the technology, it's the attitude, it's all of us, like he said.
All right.
Why didn't you sue for the manhole?
All right, very quickly before we bring in on
The village thing has
The
hurt
village
us.
point, but I think there's a point.
What's the problem with the village?
I think
I think what Onoberes was saying, there are some people who come with the habits and they practice them here in town.
I want to clarify.
A mindset issue.
I want to reclaim Honorable Resu's point because I think it's a good point, but I think it makes 2 points together. The part A is that we have men who are in charge of this country who are still villagers. And I think that's the point I wanted to make, that they're villagers. Let me give you an example. We have a man who likes posing with cattle in the morning. And if you come from the cattle corridor, the dung of cattle has a sort of a, not melancholic, but it has some sort of a scent which is nostalgic. It's woodish. You like it? The smell of dried dung, which is being hit by dew. It's the way it smells. We have a man who is president of this country, and he likes posing with cattle. He's not a farmer. He's not an agro farmer. He's not an agro business person. He doesn't pose behind factories processing meat. He doesn't pose behind a dairy product, say yogurt or processed milk. He poses behind live heads of cattle. The sight of many horns, the smell of dung pleases him. Now that man is president. He's content with small things. In the current state of the city, that's good enough for him. The stuff that you saw when you were taking a stroll around Radio 1, that's okay. Because if you're in the villages, if you're in Kabiramaido, that might look okay. So I think that's the part of the mindset that you said retain. Otherwise, when folks come to town, they need leadership. We need to find a code put in place by urban planners, and then we learn to be cosmopolitans, right? Because we come from our villages, but we need to learn. And then the point that I think you also made, which we talk about Matoke, we are so lucky in this country that a huge percentage of our garbage is organic. We are extremely lucky in that context. Elsewhere in Europe, where they don't have organic, because you see, if you go to Nakasero, you pick your pineapples as they are. You don't pack them. In Europe, they produce a huge amount of rubbish from packaging. So if you're peeling matoke from, say, Fort Porton, moving it to Kampala, you're packaging it. Now, instead of producing organic rubbish, you're going to produce plastic bags and other forms of packaging. Now, those things multiply really quickly, and they're difficult to deal with. One of the pains for me is that we can't deal with 90% organic rubbish. Isn't that crazy that, we claim to be sort of cosmopolitans in this city? We have a planning authority. But we can't deal with 90% of organic rubbish, which you can even put a compost behind your house and you can deal with organic rubbish.
All right.
As a country, we can't do that. But I think the point is valid. We have villagers who are in charge of this country.
But even villages should be saved from this rubbish thing. Because if you see, Gulu is a city now. You mentioned this Kampala Boulevard building. in front it looks like Dubai. At the back it looks like
It's rubbish.
Kasukusu.
All right.
Something like that.
We'll be
But-
digging deeper, looking at the state of these new cities that are coming
Yeah, but
up.
the rural component should not be forgotten, and that's what the board was trying to do, to balance between urban and rural and equalize that service delivery.
Yeah,
So
but you have men moving with
All right, let's bring in Honorable Resu. And we need to focus a little bit. We need to focus a little bit on Kampala. The central government took over Kampala, and as we speak now, like Yusuf said, the president said, the Lord Mayor and the elected leaders are now ceremonial, no power. They are simply there putting on chains. And when the central government took over the city of Kampala, was to give it that status of the city. But right now we seem to be in a blame game. KCCA elected leaders are pointing fingers at the central government. The central government also is pointing fingers the other way. What could be going on as government failed to administer Kampala? Is it the politics of Kampala that is also causing a problem to this extent?
I think it's first of all, let me start by replying Yusuf. He's talking about the president being a cow owner.
Not an industrialist.
Not an industrialist. I think that is an exaggeration because the cows have never been in the streets of Kampala. The streets, where the cows appear is in rural areas.
There are some places in Kampala here.
At the same time,
if you go around some garbage,
I am coming
garbage,
to
they are not his
I'm
cows.
coming to that.
They are not his cows.
They are not his cows.
Yeah.
And I want to say that the cows which appear on the streets of Kampala is the problem, and is the problem of the implementation of the law.
Okay.
Which I think KCCA has the responsibility to ensure that the law is enforced. You see,
Which
the rule of
particular
law,
KCCA? When we talk about KCCA, it seems we have two parts. We have the people who are in charge of administration, and then we have the politicians. Where should we point the
It's
fingers?
not KCCA really.
Where should we point the fingers?
It is the holistically KCCA.
Okay.
The dichotomy you are trying to bring are the nitty-gritties of the confusion which has brought the problem, which should be dealt with. And that's what I wanted to talk about right away.
All right.
I want to say this. In matters of public administration, we should de-escalate politics. Because without this de-escalation of politics, we are likely to go astray. And that's what is happening in Kampala. And unfortunately, with the escalation of politics, then the politicians become the planners, then the planners become just onlookers, which is unfortunate. And that is why most cities which have de-escalated politics in administration are successful, and others which have escalated have not been successful. And this goes across the board. If the politicians in KCCA or in Uganda, for that matter, have taken a higher hand against the technocrats, it is just unfortunate. It's a high time. Kiteezi has taught us. We sit down and we harmonize our positions. That's all I can say for that. Now, I want to say this thing which I think is very important. My sister here said there has been a funding gap, and there is consistently, taking place to a point where it even reached in the single digits of
200 million per
200
quarter
million
performance.
per quarter.
For 3 months.
The question is why? Why should we de-escalate a budget when we know very well that it's a priority? It is because of a very simple reason. It is because people do not know their priorities. It's as simple as that. In this country, this Kiteezi thing goes beyond ordinary death in Kiteezi. It questions also our integrity and the willingness to serve the people. This is how I look at it. It goes beyond ordinary Kiteezi death as we see it. This death actually goes to a point where we must question how much committed we are to serve our people. Because these people have died innocently because of two reasons. One, they were not given people are people. The land tenure system in Uganda brings into, it is questioned by this very fact that maybe some people even have been selling land very near the dump site, and someone has a legitimate ownership on account of that. And KCCA the Uganda Lands Commission probably must have given a land title. So that person thinks he must do what? Construct a residence or do something with that property, which is next to such a dangerous place, which had also been piling up. So all these things must be reviewed. All these things must be seen afresh. And I think this country should resort itself to go to the technical drawing board and determine certain things objectively and clearly without fear or favor.
Right, we have comments coming in from the listeners. We have one comment that comes in from Kamadi Bionavie, concerned citizen, who says, good evening, Mr. Lukwaga and the panel. Let cases here be reminded that it's a duty bearer expected to facilitate and guarantee the enjoyment of the human rights and of the holders. The Kiteezi tragedy could have been avoided. The issue of open manholes, very deep pot drum holes, is like an acceptable way of living. I actually wonder whether cases here sees these anomalies the way I do. Let there be accountability and non-repetition. That's a comment there from Kamadi Bionavie. Then we have others coming in. Good evening, Spectrum Xtra. Thanks for hosting the guest. Concerning the Kiteezi event, the biggest problem of Uganda is the application of politics in all policies. If the places for dumping garbage, who authorize people to settle there? Today is Kiteezi. Tomorrow will be those who have completely blocked the drainage channels by building in wetlands and swamps. We are sitting on a time bomb as a country. Rest in peace to those who have perished. That's a comment from Drakumani, who is listening in from Arua. Another comment before we go for a break. Good evening, Spectrum Xtra. Kiteezi accident that buried fellow Ugandans is because the NRM government has concentrated on opposition, the fear for Chagulanyi. The rest is useless to the government. For Mr. Museveni and NRM, they look at Uganda's problem as Chagulanyi. The rest, Mr. Museveni doesn't care. Sometimes I wonder what people vote for about this NRM government. How does garbage have to be a mountain and reach an extent of killing people? That is by Nemugisha Godfrey from the National Unity Platform Party. Let's go for a break now. When we return, we'll shift our gears and also look at these new cities that are coming up. Are they actually being planned for? Are they likely to avoid the situation that we're seeing in Kampala? Now, stay tuned to Radio 1 FM 90. We'll continue after this. Thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Xtra live on Radio 1 FM 90. Our topic of discussion, we are looking at the Kiteezi accident and the implications for urban planning in our country. My guest, Ms. Amanda Ngabirano, chairperson of the National Physical Planning Board. She is an urban planner and lecturer in the same discipline, but she actually tells us that this National Physical Planning Board has now ceased to exist. Its mandate is being moved to the National Planning Authority.
You can't grill her on anything.
But she is here in her right as an urban planner. But it's not about grilling. She actually told us they did approve plans of several entities.
She said they cut all their money.
She has some information about what could be going on. We also have in studio the Honorable John Eresu, economist and former Paremaido County MP. Thank you very much for joining us. Then we have Mr. Yusuf Serunkuma, political economist, research columnist with the Observer newspaper, commentator on governance matters. Well, we still have more comments coming in. We have a comment coming in from Cuthbert Isingoma, who says, good evening, Anderson. Kampala markets generate 80% of the biodegradable, which is got from the food items from Wakiso, Mukono, and Mpigi. The people who buy this food are the same people who come to work in Kampala and take the food back to Wakiso, Mukono, and Mpigi. So why don't we take the markets to Wakiso, Mpigi, and Mukono? The Kampala residents can go to these areas and buy the food. That's a comment from Cuthbert Isingoma Amoti, who is listening to us. We have another comment coming in from another listener here. He says, Kenneth, convey my condolences to the country and the people affected in Kiteezi. My submission is greatly on the fact that very few or none of the discussants is concerned about who generates the waste. Kiteezi is a national garbage referral center. So let Mr. Lukwago mobilize transporters of food to City Market, help take waste back to their districts these 2 months. Let's involve farmers and plastic manufacturers. That's a comment from Henry Chiwenda. Henry Fred Twinamaskol writes in and says, lack of a well-functional system, checks and balance, and effective administrative capacity have resulted in gross incompetence and obscene corruption, resulting in total service delivery breakdown. It's like we are in a jungle. No one seems to be accountable. We have a comment coming in from Alan. Uganda, I think, is the only country where the army UPDF doesn't help in times of disasters like floods, landslides. Case in point is the Kiteezi disaster. The UPDF should have been deployed for the first emergency aid, search, rescue, and evacuation of victims. At least we have seen the armed forces involved in natural disaster response in countries like China, US, Japan, Canada, Belgium, Morocco, Germany, South Africa, etc. Disaster response shouldn't entirely be left for community volunteers, onlookers, or Red Cross. Good evening, Kenneth. I seriously don't agree with the panelists who said that Kampala is a village. If it is what it is the work of KCC and the government. Let the government provide modern methods of reducing garbage in our city. That is Ephraim listening in from Nampange. Then we have another comment, so many other comments coming in. Thanks for the show. The lady in the studio is talking about petrol stations being close to each other. You go to Lugala Town Council. As you go to Masanafu, there are 3 petrol stations close to each other, just 4 meters apart. In case of an accident, all the villages around shall be in flames. That is Lawrence, who is listening for us here in Kampala.
Okay.
Very quickly,
that's the point that Honorable Resu raised. So we have these villagers who are falling in things. They came to the city, got power, and they have not
come from the village.
No, let me finish this point. They fell in things, and after falling in things, they don't care about planning because they still have a village mindset. So this is why all they care about is sometimes these petrol stations are not even profitable because of the proximity to each other. They're not profitable. But you have the bragging rights. I own a petrol station. You know, when I spoke about Museveni's cows, it's the mindset, not where the cows are. He retained a pastoral mindset. You can't be president for a country for 40... You see, Museveni works like a Kadama in Kampala. Even when he has rights to vote from within Kampala, for the entire time to be president, he goes back to his village to vote. So he sees his home as the village, Xtra. Even when his entire adult life and career has thrived in this place, he should be able to call this home.
Well, they say home is best.
Listen,
you can go left, right, center.
But that's the point he made. That villagers who are still attached to their villages come here to extract. So if you're extracting in a place and you're just extracting, you don't care about wastage. You don't care about planning. You don't care. You do as much as possible extraction and you go away. That's what is happening in this country.
I want to hear your view about the confusion at KCCA, where everyone seems to be blaming the other.
I felt Honorable Resu.
But I want to put this in correct perspective.
Yes, Honorable Resu.
What I mean essentially is not about personalities. But what I mean is the kind of attitudes we have and we import it to town and live like it was the village. For example, I told you that I walked around Nakasero Market today in the evening just to check really what is this garbage like. Nakasero Market has a foul smell. Nakasero Market has garbage which is in heaps. Nakasero Market has the crudest way of display and advertisement of merchandise, which is food being sold. And you ask yourself a very simple question: who is buying this and why? And who is selling it? By the way, not only Nakasero Market. You walk around Kampala at this time, you will find every street is a vending place for selling food stuff. Are you getting me? And garbage will remain after sales of all those things put together. And that is what I mean. What I mean also is that if you look at the garbage collection mechanism in this country, or Kampala for that matter, which is the subject of our discussion, you would be shocked. People have cut these plastic bins, what are they called? Drums which have been used for bringing chemicals into the country. In fact, someone almost hit me with one this evening when he was rolling a full drum around Market Street as I was walking around checking what things were like. We don't have a proper mechanism of garbage collection, garbage segregation, so that its disposal is also accordingly possible. We are talking about biodegradable garbage, but it's mixed with glass, it's mixed with plastic, it's mixed with... So all this is because we don't have proper regulations in place to govern the process of garbage management. in this country, and it's the responsibility of KCCA.
But that's not because of
Number
villages
two,
and the city.
Now the question of but that is purely also village mentality, because you see garbage not as something which can be segregated. You see garbage as garbage, and you take it in total as a unit of a process. Of the disposable reject, which indeed is not true. They are all different, and that's also one reason why recycling in this country is a problem. That's one thing you have to know. Secondly, and that's also one reason when the Lord Mayor talks about what is it called, getting electricity out of garbage by biomass. It is not possible when garbage is mixed up.
Well,
so unless
if you allow an investor to come here, they will be able to
Why
provide...
you wait for an investor? Because we could do these things now and even segregate our garbage, and that which can decompose, we can turn them back into fertilizers and resell, and KCC would make money out of it.
My problem with
now, politically, which Yusuf is up to. Yusuf is
it a political problem?
He's saying, he's giving an insinuation. He's politically saying the problem is because the people who came to power in this country are from the village. They have a village mentality. The president is still a cow owner and believes in cows. And I'm saying, yes, fine, everybody believes in cows. In fact, for me, I also have cows. My cows are in the village, but I've never brought them to the streets. And I'm sure Museveni also has cows, and he doesn't bring them to the streets. That is all fine. The question is, the mindset that we have is not only about leadership. The mindset what we have is about everybody who has come to live in Kampala, and that is a fact.
Okay, that's where I disagree with you.
For example, I can tell you, Yusuf, no, let me finish. For example, Yusuf, the cooking of Luombo is one big aspect of garbage accumulation in Kampala. Did you know that? The cooking in small, behind houses, kafundas, in Kampala here, where people carry food crossing the streets, because they have cooked from some corner or between the corridors of buildings, is one way by which garbage is also accumulating in Kampala. Do you agree with that?
But that garbage is not the same as like a 5-star hotel garbage.
Let me tell you, that garbage becomes a problem because it's not organized, the disposal is not organized. They are just dumped on the streets.
But the garbage is not the problem.
All right.
And once it's dumped on the streets...
Yusuf, I want you to answer my question. Don't set your own question.
Yes.
You are at the point where you should share your views about the issues in KCCA, because everybody seems to be pointing fingers at KCCA, so that they should take responsibility. There are some people actually saying...
I wanted to conclude for Yusuf
they expected
all
these
things...
is still going
I want to conclude for Yusuf like this. All these things that we see which make a city look ugly, which make a city not what a city should be, is a responsibility of KCCA to make sure that ordinances are there to regulate how city life is managed and lived.
All right. I know the ordinance is in place about trade order in markets and things like that.
Is it enforced?
Well, that's another point. That's what you are coming to, Yusuf. KCCA.
Just a quick comment.
Is the problem in KCCA?
I'm going to respond to that Anderson, in a minute.
Let's move forward.
We're definitely going to move forward. But two things. This city...
You want a monologue with
this city has people who are originally born with ancestry here. So you talk about Kamas, that's who came.
I also came.
And I agree with you that Kamas came with the village.
How does that help
number two,
deal with the garbage in Kampala?
We're talking about agency here. The problem for me is that Honorable Oresu distributes responsibility to everybody. And I'm arguing that there's people who should be held responsible. If I come as a villager and I find a system in place, I obey the system. If I find no system, I go with no system.
All right.
This is why we have urban planners.
He's pointing fingers at KCCA.
To plan the city for us villagers to live in it.
For people, not
so
villagers.
If urban planners fail to do their job, the urban planner here, who has been in a position of authority, now she's unemployed, who has been in a position of authority, just told us that she can't enforce the things which should make this city, look the way you like it to be. She's told us she's so handicapped. Every regulation they've given, they can't implement. Who has the tools of coercion to coerce people to do it? The guys at the top. And I'm sure you have this proverb in your language. A fish starts to rot from where? From the head, not from below. So KCCA. I felt we downplayed the confusion at KCCA. And I think it's not fair to the Lord Mayor here, who was locked out of office for a full term at one point. The confusion is real. And the people who have held these positions have bragged about it. Mr. Museveni has bragged about it publicly. Jennifer Msisi bragged about it publicly, that we made Lukwago look useless. Museveni has, on the record, he said he's just there with locks and padlocks, but he has nothing. So the problem is real. Now, the problem for the Wananchi, like myself, is that we hold the people we vote into office accountable. So right now they'll be shaking because when they come back for the next electoral cycle, we might kick them out. But Dorothy Chisaka doesn't care. The appointing authority still holds in high esteem, so she will come back. The technocrats, who are technical people, who we should be respecting, they don't account to the Wananchi, who are the victims of these disasters. They account to the man on the top. And as I said, as to develop your point, the man at the top is the fish. It starts right from the top. So the people below don't care. So if they don't care, what are we looking at? We don't need to downplay the division between the political wing of KCC and the technocrat, because the division is real. Lukwago has on the record called, let's implement the master plan of KCC, of the city. Let's follow the master plan. You see, Jennifer Msisi built Ginger Road 3 times because she didn't follow the plan. They hired Israelis who drafted a wonderful plan as far as developing this state is concerned. The technocrats don't follow the plan. Even after they hired consultants to think through how to make this city work for us. We need 2.1 trillion every year to make this city work for us. But even the little that we have, which is way below, the technocrats don't follow regulations.
All right.
Yes,
More comments coming in. Arias Lukwago envisaged this tragedy and warned the officials in KCCA, but his words were not taken for granted. The issue is he warned officials at KCCA, which one would say he warned himself. Some people would say so because he's part of KCCA. And that's why I was asking you, is there a problem at KCCA? Who should we hold accountable at KCCA?
Look, Lukwago is powerless. As I said, Museveni proudly reduced him to a ceremonial leader. He's so handcuffed. Just as I was actually shocked, I thought maybe Ngareno would say we had some power, we could move things. He said, we can't do things.
But that's why I'm saying...
So look, I'll give it to cameras to show the entire country that we had a crisis.
That's why I'm saying, my brother Yusuf, that we need to de-escalate politics when it comes to public service delivery.
All right, let's hear from...
I think that's the answer.
Mr. Ngalama, your take on the KCCA,
really been dwarfed
situation.
by the 3 men in the studios. Next time, at least bring one other woman, so together we can also dwarf
you have all the time you need.
Now, I'm not going to dive into the political interpretation of this because I want to be professional.
All right.
One thing is that physical planning in general in the country was abandoned. It was not prioritized as it should be. We have 241,000 square kilometers of land. But every growth opportunity is being focused here until now. We say that we generate 70% of the country's GDP in Greater Kampala area. That's Kampala, Mukono, Wakiso. But do we know how much we are losing? It's more, because we are not distributing opportunities. Now, the women, most of them are women, but there are also men who are now doing this informal business of cooking with those charcoal stoves. The woman or the man between these buildings that you see preparing the wombo, they are looking for an opportunity to survive. And that is also good. But the problem is that we have now decided to focus on that population, and we are forgetting the elite in the system. These elite people socially think that they are ready for the city, but they are not. You know, there is someone who is rich in Muyenga who still burns rubbish and inconveniences the neighbor with all the smoke, you know? And that person is educated, the person is rich. So you cannot say that these people are generating
You have a
lot
name?
of waste.
It's just giving an example.
I'm giving an example. You can even find out in your neighborhood. There is that someone who you think should know. Now, you also hinted on the issue of land ownership of those Kiteezi. Going back to Kiteezi, really to focus on the issue why we're here. Those people, did they buy the land because it was readily available? Were those structures approved? I think KCCA should do an audit. if they were approved by the Physical Planning Committee, the Building Committee was not there yet, I think, then we need to also face that direction, because you need to look at the environmental hazards for people to live where they should live. However, we have this socio-economic gap that someone is desperately looking for shelter.
The urban poor.
The urban poor. So they will settle anywhere. But we have a situation of wetlands being encroached upon by both the rich and the poor. Now, the impact that the poor has on that wetland is way smaller than the impact the rich investment has. But who approves those plans? This is where we have to go. We also have a situation of drainage, that we construct roads and we don't focus on drainage. We need to look at the contracts we have given these companies, construction companies. What they give us, what we pay for, and what we get. I don't think there's any road that is supposed to be kept with open drains, open trenches. From the moment we issue that contract, from the moment we commission the road, and people start using it, when it's wide open on both sides, it's very wrong. Let's also follow up on those contracts and ask the contractor, do you know how many bicycle riders are being killed? Pedestrians being killed? The total number today may be more than the total number that has perished in Kiteezi.
All right.
And borders, just look at road safety. It's like some people in the system should die. So we are focusing on the tires and forgetting the limbs. That's a situation of facing the priorities. Let's prioritize physical planning nationwide and budget for it. After security, we should come number 2.
All right. Yeah. I'm going to come to you. We have a comment coming in from Clara, who says, Spectrum Xtra, while the incident at Kiteezi is sad and shocking, it's also an indicator to how we need to change as a people. The government has shown that they have challenges in managing urban municipal waste. Relying on government to fix this problem is taking us nowhere. All of us need to take personal responsibility for our waste. Separate the waste into plastic, paper, metal, glass, biodegradable, etc. at the source, homes, businesses, markets, schools, etc. Waste management companies should only collect sorted waste and deliver it to the relevant recycling or composting centers. We should not be looking at setting up a new landfill. In this century, we can do better than that. That's a comment from Clara. You wanted to come in.
And in fact, that is what is happening in other countries.
Thank you, Clara.
In other countries, Clara is quite right. I lived in Europe for some time, and I had 3 plastic bags of different wastes. And each company was specifically coming to pick a particular waste for which it's assigned. And that's how it goes. Anyway, what I wanted to raise was, there is another problem that is within our planning system, and especially in construction industry. I don't know whether it is right or it's approvable or what, I don't know. But this is my fear. Every house constructed in Uganda today has a septic tank. We don't have open sewers. We have septic tanks for every house which has been built. Behind the house or in front of the house, it looks clean, it looks nice. Invariably converting almost all our urban centers, or where they are modern construction, as we call them, as if they are sitting on what? On sewage. What is the expected outcome of this thing 20, 30, 40, 50 years to come? When population will have increased, construction of housing will have increased, and thereby, if we continue with this, then the many septic tanks will have also multiplied. What is the net effect of this? I think this is another problem that is really a problem of planning, construction industry should take into account. But I don't know whether, as a result of having so many septic tanks, turning the whole urban center into sitting on sewage, would mean, in the end, creating room for an epidemic to come. Because capillarity, there is water underground, which will be flowing and might be carrying some of these wastes, and other people on the lower part of the whole area, tapping this water, because some people are now not getting water from national water. In our case, in Uganda, they are making their own water holes and pumping water to their own residences because of bills. What is the position?
Honorable, there are three aspects, three very key issues in city or urban management that should not be ignored. Solid waste management is number one because you cannot hide it. It destroys the city immediately through the stench, the visual quality, what people see, through the health hazard that it possesses.
And one listener here seems to agree with you. What actually is on the ground because of for some?
Those are things which are very, very, very critical.
The whole country.
Now, I'm talking about the face of a place. Like now, Kampala is the capital of Uganda and it is our face. So you arrive at the airport. After State House, you start seeing things that you really don't think should be in that area. And solid waste will embarrass you. Traffic and transportation will expose you from the emissions you see from the vehicles, the infrastructure that you have. Then the third is housing. If you look at the sewers of the informal settlements, you feel the pain. And they are not so far from the major institutions that we have in the country, those sewers. But you also have sewers in the established so-called rich neighborhoods in terms of access, in terms of layout. Before we started this show, you asked me about the layout, what I see from Harare when I'm landing them for urban areas.
All right.
You'll see human beings happy.
More comments coming in. This is Ben on Fred Trinamasiko. The bottom line is we go in the direction of garbage segregation by sorting it at the source, and most homeowners should remain with the biodegradable component for manure. We can also use the reverse recycling